See, how'd you guys let me beat you on that one? Come on. There's no liars in this game. Just players.
The seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat that I ain't taking from.
So this is, Sabak?
Sabak.
Sabak. Got it.
You played before?
A couple times, yeah.
Captain Lando Calrissian.
Han Solo.
Looks like you're having a good day.
I'm a lucky guy.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello and welcome to episode 117 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I am your host Becca, rather sniffly this evening, apologies, and I am joined by, as ever, with my co-hosts Chris and Dave, who are very non-sniffly, which is very good.
Good evening, folks. When we heard one of our number was sniffly, we had high hopes, but it wasn't Charlie. Damn.
And joining us on this Star Wars extravaganza, we have music journalist and film score genius extraordinaire Charlie Brigden. Hello.
Hello.
I'm trying not to be full of cold this evening, so you have to excuse me.
It's okay.
All right, no problem.
Anyway, as promised last time, we are reviewing Solo, a Star Wars story, starring a lot of unpronounceable names, so I'll do my best. Alden Ehrenreich, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Thandie Newton, Donald Glover, Jonas Suetonius, and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and many more, written by Lawrence and Kasdan, original score by John Powell, directed by Ron Howard, and released 2018.
Like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, released like last month. So
Yeah, so we've kind of fallen between stools here, because like most of us have seen it, well, we've all seen it, a couple of us have seen it more than once, but it wasn't like when we did Bond and like came straight out of a viewing, so we've all seen it like a good few days ago now at least.
yeah, we staggered it.
We'll do our best with this. Worth mentioning, just not to question Becca's cast list, but I'm not sure if she mentioned Paul Bettany.
No, I did not. I missed him out.
Worth mentioning just because he is a pretty major character in this, and actually a replacement. The original character, the same character, possibly with very different characteristics, but the same name of character in the same role under the Lord and Miller version, and we'll talk about the making of the film in a little bit, was played by Michael K. Williams, which would have been a very, very different take on it, I imagine.
Oh, it would have been very different. Yeah, I didn't miss him out on purpose. When it has a long cast, I try to round it up or down as best I can, but I just accidentally missed him out. Apologies. When we come to do the Marvel series, it'll be like deep breath, and then I read out all the names on IMDb.com.
Just mention Paul Bettany every week, then. To be
I shall. So I quite like him. He's quite good in all the many films that he's done, apart from that one about tennis.
Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Wimbledon had some of the worst CG I've ever seen, and it was just the tennis balls. They just looked
CGI
really
tennis
fucking
balls.
weird.
Very strange.
But
anyway, no, he's generally amazing.
yeah. Now, this of course is one of those films that happens now and again, relatively rarely, but a bit Superman 2 style. But even more so, it's been substantially reshot. This is not the film we would have got. They'd shot nearly all of it with Lord and Miller, directors of, most famously, the Lego Movie. And they were fired with about 80% of this film in the can. And of course, that's why Michael K. Williams isn't in the new version, because there were scheduling conflicts. And then they brought in Ron Howard to reshoot the same script. So, in some respects, this is the film we would have got, but obviously in sensibility, performances, and a couple of castings, it isn't.
So it is pretty much the same story we would have got, but it would have been played more as comedic.
Because that was the problem, was that they were supposedly deviating from Kasdan's script.
What I heard, and I think we've all read different things, so feel free to chip in, disagree, add to what I'm saying, or anything like that. I've heard a couple of contradictory things, because in one place I read, their version would have been darker. Don't believe that for a second. But I just think darker is a word people throw out when they're talking about filmmaking.
It depends on dark in what terms, like what sense.
Well, what I did hear was that it was a couple of things. They were doing a shot of the script every time. They were doing a take of the script at least every time. And then they were doing takes where they were encouraging the actors to ad-lib and just make it up as they go along and throwing in jokes and all the rest of it. And as they went along, there was a bit of consternation at this to start with. But as it went along, apparently this was just ramping up. They were reluctantly doing like a single take of the script and then countless takes of just ad-libbing and everything else. It certainly pissed off Jonathan and Lawrence Kasdan. It pissed off the producers. And it was confusing the cast, but also the editors were getting involved and saying, well, we're not sure we're getting an acceptable take even for coverage to cut it together with what they've already shot. Mm. There were complaints, and again, I want to be very careful with this because you can I know we don't have the biggest audience, but I think in being responsible, we've got to be careful how we report this bit. Alden Ehrenreich was supposedly having to have acting lessons. Now, some of the more irresponsible outlets were reporting that almost as is and just saying, well, he was giving a terrible, wooden, awful performance. As we got into the Ron Howard sort of redo of this film, the way it started to be reported was that it was more about capturing enough of the flavour of the character and little elements of Harrison Ford's take on the character. So it was less about him giving a poor performance and more about giving a character performance. We'll never quite know the truth of that, but Alden Ehrenreich is certainly not a poorly thought of actor. I think it did feed into some of the sort of trolls out there who wanted that other guy who looked a bit more like Harrison Ford. But
I would be more inclined to believe that. I mean, I've seen him in a few other films, and he's pretty solid. So I think it was more
impressions of him.
But he was more like an impressionist than anything.
That's the point. I think the analogy I would give here is when Danny Boyle did his Steve Jobs film, he cast Michael Fassbender, who looks nothing like Steve Jobs. Mm. If you want a look-alike, you go and cast Ashton Kutcher, who did do another version of that film.
He did.
Ashton Kutcher is in no respect as a comparable talent to Michael Fassbender. Now, I don't want to talk about that other actor particularly because I don't know much of his stuff, but a straight impression is not generally the way to go.
No, it's not something you want to do, is it? I mean, it's like somebody like Ehrenreich did. I would say he did create enough of the flavour of Solo, but also he put his own stamp on it as well, which is a lot. He's filling up some big shoes. It's like
in my view,
every time somebody takes on Bond, or say, for example, if there's a new Indiana Jones, for example, stepping into the role of iconic character. But I think he managed to kind of do the double, as it were, and pull it off and create his own stamp on it too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought going it. Like watching, as I was watching it, I was like, okay, how do I take this? And I just thought, yeah, it's just like watching a new Bond, and you just go, right, well, you know what, Harrison Ford's pretty unique, and you can't just get a guy to just do an impression, regardless of who that actor is. So how do you play this? And at the end of the day, you have to maybe just go, fuck it, just play a Han Solo type character, but in different interpretation.
Sorry. This is however many years before Star Wars. So it's not the same character anyway. You're not playing Harrison Ford as he is. You're playing Harrison Ford as he was.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, the problem is there are certain character traits, in terms of how he delivers his lines, his drawl, or how he holds himself together. There is certain aspect of Harrison Ford that isn't there here, but it's you can't just do an impression of Harrison Ford, otherwise the performance won't be there. I mean, the only thing I will say, it's like a young person, but how long ago is this from New Hope? I'm not entirely sure. How old is Han Solo?
8 to 10 years, I think.
8 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be okay, maybe, but I don't know. They might do another few films of this, which I won't object to. They might do that growth into that character, but then who knows? It's not done that well though.
Well, I think we'll get into first thoughts in a minute, so I'm going to be careful how much I say here. But I think sequels would play better. I think because the first film, when you think you might only make one because you're doing these sort of Star Wars stories, and then you might move on to something else. They got entirely too caught up in what they wanted to reference. And I think with second and third films, you'd be less inclined to do that. You'd be right, we've got our character and we've got, Chewie and we've got whatever it is you want to put into the new films. Let's just tell an original story.
Yeah, like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, whatever you think of it, took a lot more chances. Because
The Force Awakens had established.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the tone, there were little things where Ron Howard is not a comedic filmmaker particularly. There's sometimes a bit of a lightness of tone. I will talk about Ron Howard a little bit in a minute because I think he's poorly served by his general reputation, which is almost damning with faint praise, but I'll come on to that. The shot where I thought on second viewing, I thought, hang on a minute, that would have been a big joke if the Lord and Miller team had done it, is when he signs up, and we'll get onto that scene in a while because I don't like that scene much, but he's told, you'll be flying in no time. And the next shot is 3 years later and he's launched through the air by an explosion. That's a joke. That's you'll be flying in no time. And I didn't spot it as such because Ron Howard doesn't have a particularly comedic sensibility. The one thing I will just quickly say about Ron Howard, though, is I've lost count of the number of times now I've heard the term safe pair of hands, dependable, those sorts of things. And I think that really does play down his talent level. And calling him in to do a film like this and rescue it, it's become good old dependable Ron.
I think when it comes to someone like Ron Howard, and you are right, I think when you think of a safe pair of hands, as opposed to someone who has a unique vision, like Ron Howard is not someone you necessarily think of like has a distinctive look or feel to his films, but he makes very well crafted films.
But I'm not really sure how many directors do have that.
That's a good
people have
point.
gone, well, yeah, what about... And
it's like auteurs, isn't it? I
podcast on this film briefly. Well, it wasn't about this film, it's about other things. But I was podcasting with James Murphy, and he said much what you've just said. And I said, what I just said, well, most directors don't. And he said, well, Tim Burton. And I'm thinking, well, that's a pretty extreme example, of a director that just constantly looks like them, and a Tarantino and people like that. Most directors are a little bit more malleable than that. But I just wanted to point out before we go into this film.
Yeah, I mean, it does depend because you're also doing like a big budget franchise film as well. So if you do have someone who has that more distinct look, I think we were talking about just before recording. Sorry for listeners who've not heard it, but about the new Jurassic Park film. Now you could say that director has a distinct look and feel with his previous work, but at the same time he's doing a big blockbuster film, so he has certain parts where it's like you can see that director, but overall the film is still just a big massive blockbuster.
So you've got to be a bit careful with that. But when I'm looking at, there's a lot of his films I don't like, and most of the time I just think, they're all right about what he's produced. But if I look at just the last 10 years, certainly Frost Nixon and Rush are two of the better films I've seen in that period.
I would agree.
I'm not overly fond of his Dan Brown stuff, but going back a bit further, there's normally a sort of sepia-toned warmth to him, his stuff. Cinderella Man does look like it's from the same director as A Beautiful Mind. It does. And I would say they are both plausibly from the same director as Apollo 13. So, not quite true, but all I wanted to say is this is quite an accomplished director, right the way back to Splash. I knew you said Slash. That would have been a different. That would have been a different film.
That would have been a very different.
I've still not seen Splash. It's one of the things I need to get on. But
yeah,
maybe we'll do it one day.
Yeah, we'll cover the Splash series.
With Splash 2 with Amy Yazbek.
Mermaid films in general.
And it's like Teen Wolf 2. It's Splash T-00.
Oh god.
Yeah.
That type of film, is it?
Yeah, but so this is far from an unaccomplished filmmaker. And to step in at this stage of the game was really brave, I think, because it would only have sort of stood out by going wrong, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ron Howard had much to really lose. I think it was more of like, Ron, do us a favour. He's like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll step in. I mean, if had this gone like really bad. I don't think he's at the stage now where he's not going to be too damaged from it. He'll just move on, and particularly with the production history, he's kind of got a get out clause. Like, okay, well, it was trouble from the offset, so that's where you are with it.
I've just noticed he's directed the Beatles, the 8 Days a Week documentary. That's pretty good.
I forgot about that.
That's pretty good. I didn't even know.
And
I didn't see that.
Solo was not his first Lucasfilm film he directed as well, because he did Willow.
Of course he did.
Yeah, which is a film I can barely remember because I think I saw it when it was like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I would have seen it in my early mid-teens.
Yeah, 1988.
I don't remember much about it except that like I had a real thing for Joanne Whalley at that age. But I don't remember much of it. There's talk of sequels to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, an accomplished filmmaker, a safe pair of hands, but all of those epithets are true, but we just got to be a bit careful that we don't just box him down as just that.
Yeah.
No, but I think the main thing he's a competent filmmaker. Like he's not someone who is usually known for making like a crap film.
Yeah. But I would recommend Rush to anybody. 2013 Chris Hemsworth, Daniel Bruhl film about the Niki Lauda, James Hunt 1976 Formula One season. Now, you don't need to be a fan of Formula One. The film gives you everything you need to know. But during that season, August the 1st at the Nürburgring, Niki Lauda's crashed and his car caught fire. And he was severely burnt inside and out. His lungs were full of crap and all the rest of it. He was read the last rites. He missed 2 races and managed to lose the title only by a point. Incredible bravery, full stop, to come back from that. And if I look at the last 10 years or so, I was very fond of Frost Nixon as well.
Yeah, I also kind of see my praise for those films as well. They're really good. I mean, I know a lot more about Frost Nixon than I do Formula One. But I was really surprised by Rush. Like I say, I went in kind of not. I knew the names, but I didn't know very much about their rivalry and their relationship. But I really enjoyed that film. But yeah, Frost Nixon, it was incredible. It was one of the best films about the most famous interview.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I will say, one thing that does occur to me is his career trajectory is not unlike that of Tom Hanks. Yeah. Because you look early on and he's doing stuff like Splash and Cocoon and Willow, Parenthood, very warm family films. And then he goes a bit blockbuster-ish with Backdraft and Far and Away.
Backdraft is brilliant. And
then sort of around the mid-90s, he starts chasing sort of more Oscar-baity fare, like Apollo 13 and so on. There is an arc to his career, certainly.
Yeah, they're very much of that same era. I was going to say the genre then, but yeah, of that same kind of era, aren't they? So they kind of follow quite a similar path. But now they're kind of like very stately figures within cinema, so they can pursue the higher tier projects.
Absolutely, and he's also the father of Bryce Dallas Howard, who's just absolutely shat the bed in the new Jurassic World film, which is shit.
Not her fault,
she's doing very well, anyway. So
not her fault. She's very good in it. She's very good in everything.
Yeah, she's very talented. But
in fact, one of the best performances I've ever seen from her was one of her first in The Village. She was terrific in that. What do you think of the film?
Yeah. Actress, definitely, but just happens to be in a rubbish film.
Yeah. Okay, let's open up some sort of opening thoughts on this film. I guess I'm quite happy to start in saying that I think I refer you back to stuff I've said in the 2 episodes leading up to this. This is not the sort of thing I want Lucasfilm to be doing. In general terms, I do not want to see the people we know the early years. I think that is just shrinking the universe, and it gives us the same problems you've got with the prequels, that everything then takes on the air of lore. So, the dice that have been kind of throwaway until The Last Jedi at best. They were there, they definitely were there. But if you tried watching these films in sort of chronological order, as in when they're set in the Star Wars universe, you would look at it and go, what's the deal with this fucking dice? No. You've got, the Kessel-Run was a thing, so we had to see that. We had to see how Chewie and Han met. I've got some thoughts on that in a minute, but, all of those sorts of things are not what I want. I think the Star Wars stories are an opportunity to broaden out the universe and tell little stories and experiment with genre and fill in little bits that maybe were a line in a crawl like Rogue One, where broadly the outcome, but you have no idea how. So Rogue One, we had no idea, spoiler alert, the cast were all going to die in that at all. We just knew that now, if you thought about it long enough, you go, well, we never met any of them, so possibly. But we didn't really know. We just knew that they got those plans out. We didn't know quite where the plans were. We didn't know what the environment was like. We didn't know what the challenges would be like to getting them. We didn't know how long this took place before episode 4, etc., etc. So in theory, I think this is actually, and this is the nastiest thing I'll say tonight because I'll be relatively positive about the film, but I think this is lazy, pandering filmmaking. But I do feel sorry for Lucasfilm because they can't win. When they do make something like The Force Awakens, they're copying themselves, and they make something like this, they're just pandering. But when they do try to do something like The Last Jedi, they're slaughtered for that. So I do understand that it's very difficult to be in their position. But I just think this is the last thing you do. Don't give us a fucking Boba Fett film, please, I beg you. I'll go and see it, and I'll watch it with an open mind as I did this, but it's not the way you should be going. It really, really isn't. That said, in execution, broadly speaking, I would just call this film, decent. There were bits of it I really liked. Overall, I thought I was quite underwhelmed by it, and I think underwhelmed by key bits of it, because there's an action sequence set around a train earlier in the film, and there's nothing about that action sequence that is substandard, but I was completely ungripped by it. Now, I don't know if that's because I know the main characters survive, or whether I'm just a bit burnt out on various bits of action, or whether it just is a bit underwhelming. I don't know. What I will say is I was really edgy on the whole let's show how him and Chewie met, and I thought that was terrific. I thought that was one of the best sequences of the film. I think the cast are very good. I think the story's very good. But it's making lore of everything, and you end up almost overthinking yourself as well, because they introduce a love interest for him, but he's got a history with fans with Leia. So you can't overdo that, so they end up kind of separating them. And there's a lot about this film that just feels a bit awkward and self-conscious, but with its production history, it's a bit of a miracle, actually. It's come out really decent, and for everything I've just said, you'd be hard-pressed not to have a decent time with this film.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with most of what you said, Dave, really. I think in terms of the action sequences, I think they're probably the poorest aspect of the film. They just feel very kind of generic, and there's no real excitement in them. But, as a film, it's fast-paced, it's entertaining enough. There's nothing's too, sacrilegious. I would prefer not to have seen the Kassel-Run, personally.
I agree.
I'd rather.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
I just like the idea of it being this vague term that we don't really quite understand. But now we know what it is. I'm still okay, well, the mystique of it's gone. I do agree that the best aspect is the Han and Chewie stuff. That's all handled really well. I've watched it twice, and it did work better on a second watch. And
I agree with that too.
And I think, and for on the second watch, I kind of sat there thinking, you know what, I'd be happy to watch a sequel, because I'd be happy to see where this goes, even though of all the problems of building on previous characters and maybe sort of just damaging the further reputation with another series. But I'm willing to just kind of keep them separate if need be.
But we're unencumbered from lore now.
Yeah.
We can't kill Han, obviously, unless they make it some kind of Elseworlds or, parallel universe or something, which they wouldn't. But I feel the same way as I did we were talking before we went on air about the new Jurassic World film, and two of us, Chris, have you seen it?
What, the
new Jurassic World?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 3 of us have seen it. Charlie hasn't yet, and we were just talking in general terms of disappointment about it. But I was saying that I think the film sets up the third film will be better than the second, if it happens. And I feel the same a little bit like that about this. That for everything that's happened with it, I don't think it will get another installment. But I think when they stop going in thinking we must show the dice, we must show the Kessel-Run, we must show how they meet, we must show him meeting Lando, we must show a couple of him shots of him standing with the blaster looking like Harrison Ford. Once they're unencumbered of that, there's enough chemistry between the two leads that I think they could make an excellent second installment.
I for one would like to see a Lando film. That's my wish to come out of this film.
What did you think of this film, Becca?
No, I'm with you and Chris on this one. There are certain aspects to it which, they have to jump through those hoops. They have to show how this happened, how that happened. And I'm the same like with the Kessel-Run as well, especially because there's a whole, our parsecs a measure of distance or time, which is like my dad's big bear. And he was like, hold on a minute, they got that wrong. Obviously, having grown up with the original trilogy in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed it. Once they jumped through those hoops, once they got the certain character aspects out of the way, it was fairly enjoyable. It whizzed along at a really good pace. Great characters, great performances. I say Paul Bettany, who I missed out on the cast list, was really quite a menacing and creepy character. Loved L3, brilliant, amazing performance from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Emilia Clarke, very great. I've not seen very much of Game of Thrones, but she was amazing in whatever she does. Interesting fun fact about her later on. And yeah, I did enjoy it. But again, it's just one of those things where like they have to show how they met, and it's interesting how obviously, in the early part of the film when they first meet, he actually speaks Kashikis, I don't know. And we never see it again, and it's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you're speaking my language from now on, bitch.
Yeah, this is it. You're going to speak
or I'm going to speak my own language. Yeah.
You're going to speak English, and I'm just going to understand you like I've got a babel fish in my ear. So yeah, that was a bit strange. But no, apart from that, I still find it enjoyable. They just had to jump through a few hoops, and kind of do a lot of box ticking admin to get out of the way first. But no, overall very enjoyable, and I still want to see that Lando film on those capes. Like a Han and Lando buddy film. Yeah, that'd be good fun.
The film cost 700 million to make because of the cape budget.
He had an extended cape budget, I'm sure.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there are kind of the general conceits, like you said, that they had to deal with, but I thought they dealt with those fairly well. I'm kind of treating it almost like a book or a comic. It's kind of like, because it is a spin-off, because it is separate from the main saga, then it kind of has that different feel to me, where kind of like they can have a bit more fun with it and not take themselves so seriously. And also, I like it because it's essentially a Western, and that kind of that reminds me of Han in the first Star Wars anyway. But yeah, no, I thought it was really nicely shot. All the performances were fine. Definitely Ehrenreich, I thought was really good, and you can see kind of inklings of kind of the Han he would become without being just like a Harrison Ford analog. And again, nice to see a lot of creatures. That was cool. And yeah, no, so I just really enjoyed it. Not massively fan of the end reveal, but we'll come to that.
I thought that was fucking ridiculous, but we'll come to it. Not who it was, but the way it was shot. We'll come.
Oh
to
yeah.
There was a couple of things in it. I was like, yeah, we got it, you twats. All right, we'll get to that.
So, you want to see the lightsaber, don't you? Here it is.
Here it is. Here's the big moment.
I know we talked a little bit before we got into first thoughts, but Charlie was the only one who had the presence of mind to mention Ehrenreich's performance. I would just add to that, I think he was terrific.
No, I'd say he's really good as well. I really enjoyed his performance, and I know that he wasn't like the first choice, but I'm kind of glad that they went with him. Like for me, I was like, oh, a bit of a left field selection.
I think he was the producer's first choice. I don't think he was the fans' first choice. But
no, but I'm glad that they stuck with it, and he's a dependable actor, and the films that I've seen him in, he hasn't done a bad movie just yet. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I liked him as an actor. I was a bit worried. Well, I was a bit concerned. Maybe is he right for Han? I'm not sure. I like him as an actor, but I reserved judgment to see it, to be proved wrong. But as I said before, I think when you have the mindset of it kind of be like a new Bond, and as Charlie said, it is a spin-off, so I think you have to allow a certain disconnect for a bit more creativity for the artistic license.
Can't get Harrison Ford back and have him going, yes, I'm 22.
Yeah, like Harrison Ford desperately wants to be out of the franchise. Harrison, come back and do this new young CGI shit.
Do what they did with Martin Crane and Frasier, put some like black hair dye on him, and every time he gets off a seat, he leaves like a mark there with it or something. No, I'm 22. Yeah. All right. Shall we discuss this film sequentially, folks?
Yes.
All right. I'm really gutted. There's no crawl for Charlie to do in like fucking.
Well, there is.
There is kind of.
There is. It's a crawl. It's just not done in the crawl style.
Right.
It's got the three the three paragraphs as you have the crawl. It's even got the ellipsis afterwards.
So you're saying that if you're saying there's an opening crawl, Charlie, can we have it in French, please?
Absolutely.
Absolument.
C'est un temps sans loi, liton un continuante explica que les syndicats criminels reversent pour les ressources et oppriment les pauvres. Han, un jeune homme que Corellia qui, comme beaucoup d'autres effolins, se trouve condamné de sauver caprice de la fausse Lady Proxima. Un jeune homme se bat pour se vivre, mais aspire à la vallée parmi les étoiles concourir.
Hooray!
There we go. There's not even a crawl, and he still managed to do one in a new language.
I love this new segment of hearing Charlie read the crawl in multiple languages.
Okay, for those who don't know, that's basically I think it says something like it's a lawless time. Crime syndicates compete for resources and oppress the poor. Into this comes Han, a young man from Karelia, who, like many other orphans, finds himself condemned to serve the whims of foul Lady Proxima. A young man fights survival, but longs to fly amongst the stars because he's just a young man with a dream.
He is. He wants to be a pilot.
Yeah, he's basically Oliver at the start of this film.
He is, pretty much, isn't he? That's
Oliver
true.
would have been a shit pilot.
Oh. More boy?
Hey, he went on to father Michael Jackson's kid, didn't he?
Really?
The one from the 1968
yes.
Oliver is the blood father of is Michael Jackson's daughter.
Yeah.
There you go. That's fun, folks.
That was a fun fact. Jump them all.
So is Lady Proxima Fagin.
In theory, yes.
In theory, yes. Okay. One of the first things I heard in complaints about this film was a lot complained about the cinematography, and I've got no idea why. Because I think I know why they're complaining, but I can't see it. Lots of complaints. This film's too dark, and there's not enough detail in the actors' faces because it's shot so dark, and I didn't see that at all.
Which is ridiculous.
Because it was so dark.
I think what's happening was, and we're seeing this a lot in general, is that cinemas are not, when they're showing 3D films and 2D films, they're not taking the 3D lenses off. Yeah. So as a result, the film is projected darker than it generally would be for a 2D film.
But a 30% light loss anyway.
It was projected darker, but I didn't see any loss of detail.
But, I mean the film is because it's a film about the criminal underground. It's supposed to be dark.
Yeah.
And Bradford Young, who is the cinematographer, is amazing. I mean, he did Arrival, which was a beautifully shot film.
Definitely.
And I mean, he's won tons of awards, and he's a really good.
Looking at him now, he also shot his other two well-known films would be Selma and A Most Violent Year, which we referenced last week talking about Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
Because it's set in about 1981, and he plays a character that, had they made it 40 years before, would definitely have been offered to Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought that the cinematography was wonderful.
Yeah.
And sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I think it's a great-looking film.
Yeah, I thought it was really strange to see people complaining about it as well, and just really strange. But I thought it really captured that kind of underground feel and the Western feel as well, with the scenes on whichever planet had the snow on and whichever planet had the sand on.
Yeah.
Obviously not Hoth and Tatooine.
but stand-ins for such. Yes.
Yes.
We'll come to that in a minute because it's probably named after. We do have to have kind of what's it called? We've got sort of synopsis of the plots in front of us and stuff like that, because we've seen it in, it's a few weeks now, folks. I was a little bit worried at the start of this film, I have to say. We open on Corellia, which is kind of not how I ever pictured it, but that's fine. That's for the filmmakers to show us their vision of it. And we've got Han on a bit of a caper. And I suppose that's the Bond pre-title of this film, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say the same.
But it's not set up like that in some respects, because there's no disconnect from the rest of the story, really. I was a bit worried that we're going to get a load of who cares stuff.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was okay. They're stealing coaxium. It's basically a hyperspace fuel. And we do see Lady Proxima, don't we?
Yeah, I really liked that. I thought it was really another cool practical
Well, I like the
effect.
idea that he's got a thermal detonator in his hand. It's just a rock. I mean, some of the callbacks work because we know what a thermal detonator looks like. And he's holding something that's the right sort of size and shape.
Yeah.
But it's just a rock.
Yeah,
I like that.
that's
I
what-
like that.
And
He makes the sound of it with his mouth.
Yeah.
It's like, did you make the sound of that? Yes. No.
And so there's a big sort of chase now for them to escape. Is this the bit with the diamonds are forever bit, Becca?
I'm afraid during the scene when he makes his escape in the speeder, my brain was elsewhere. We've been chatting about this. Okay, so there's a bunch of us JBR listeners that have an epic chat thread on Facebook. And a few of those guys saw the film before me, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's a stunt in there which is a little bit like the scene with the Mustang where Bond drives through a narrow alley on two wheels in Diamonds Are Forever." Yeah. So I was already pre-programmed to look out for that stunt. So that was why my brain went there and not Empire, sadly. But yeah, no, there's a scene where he does drive through a narrow alley at an angle, and I thought, oh, that's a Diamonds Are Forever moment, which isn't a callback to Diamonds Are Forever, but that's what it reminded me of.
Is Becca messaged us and said, "Did you see the Bond reference?" And me and Chris went, when Charlie's fault, when we're building up to involving Charlie, we've got a thread to get Charlie on it, but obviously we don't keep him on a thread for the 6 months that he's not involved in the show. So this was on the thread of the three of us, and me and Chris went back and said, "What are you on about?"
What the hell are you on about, you
And
stupid
then she
girl?
went to the scene, and I'm like, "That's an Empire reference."
Yeah, obviously it was an reference to Empire. But because I'd been pre-programmed to look for this particular reference by a certain group of people,
absolutely,
my brain went elsewhere. But no, it was definitely more obviously an Empire reference. It's not going to reference a completely different.
And here's me wondering, thinking, I don't remember a homosexual hitman team in this.
Kid double act R2D2 and 3PO.
I didn't have a massive problem with this scene, but it does hit on the general problem that I think Lucasfilm think the Solo name by itself is enough. Well, he hasn't got the name yet. We'll come to that in just a minute.
I've got a big problem with that.
The character name is enough for us to care. But this is a new iteration of Han. We don't know who he's with. We don't really fully know what it is he's trying to do, but he's clearly stolen something. And we're supposed to find this relatively perfunctory action sequence really exciting. And I was like that through most of the film. I was a bit ungripped by this. But it's not bad. It's like I am with a lot of the film. It's just like, that was all right, I suppose. But they're heading towards somewhere where they're just going to sort of try and fit in with the Empire and get away, aren't they?
Yeah, basically they want to get out and basically be free because they've been essentially prisoners, aren't they? Yeah,
they're kind of slaves is probably the wrong word, but yeah, Lady Proxima has all these people doing her bidding. But again, it's trying to throw us into the action, but it hasn't established our characters yet, really. But, I suppose the film's got a lot to get through. It's 2.25 hours as it is.
They established that they're romantically involved, and
they are romantically involved. Kira, she's called. This is Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones. Also from the delightful Terminator Genesis.
Oh God, which is spelled wrong.
Which is interesting, as Kira was originally the name for Rey.
Really?
Fun fact.
That I didn't know. That I didn't know at all. I'm quite, quite either way on the name. The name's fine. It's It's got a bit of
Yeah.
Star Trek in it, really, because it's almost
Well, yeah, Major Q.
yeah. But also the spelling of it reminds me of Kronos. But yeah. Yes, but they get separated. They try and bribe their way through sort of a pass, a gate. He gets through, she doesn't. And then he's got to kind of hide. And as he's about to be caught, he kind of goes up to a recruiting officer. And I have to say, this is all the problems of doing this type of film in one scene.
It was weird that I thought of Godfather Part 2 while watching this. Probably because we just did record like the podcast or something.
I was going to say, we only did it about 3 weeks ago, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, it would have been around that time. But I just watched that thinking, like what's your second name?
Yeah, Angelini. Coolio.
Angelini, yeah.
Honestly, Han Solo sounds like a perfectly normal Star Wars name to me. I don't think it's because he was on his fucking own all the time.
That for me kind of ruins the mystique. I mean, because there's various memes that go around the internet about creating a Star Wars name with various things that you ate and things like that. But that does sound like within that universe, that's, as you say, a perfectly normal name. And it's just now it just kind of ruins the mystique of it. And first, cause I remember when this news broke on the internet, they were like, "Oh, we're going to find out how he got his name and maybe potentially even change his name." And fans were just basically like, "But don't, big fat don't."
Don't. And this is the sort of thing George Lucas used to do.
Well, exactly.
There's got to be an explanation for it, There's
got to be an explanation for everything. No, there doesn't. George, fuck off.
What did you two think? What did you two guys think? Did it bother you? I mean,
no, not really. I didn't care.
Oh,
I mean, it was
like, oh, fuck off.
I mean, it was silly and contrived, and I cringed a bit. But other than that, it's got no more significance. So I didn't really care about it.
I mean, later on, when the name comes up again in front of Kira, who didn't hear that, I was just surprised she didn't go, "What? What the fuck's that?" So yeah, he's told he says he wants to be a pilot, and he's told most of them go into infantry anyway. But he says he wants to be a pilot. It's like, fine, we'll have you flying in no time. And we cut forward 3 years, and I don't even know what this is because we're used to all the sort of fighting being done by
stormtroopers.
Stormtroopers or derivatives of stormtroopers, snowtroopers or whatever. So this was a bit odd, but he's literally like a World War I infantryman.
Yeah, right down to like the what they called now. Fucking hell, my mind's just gone.
The ATSTs.
In the trenches. Yeah, right down to the trenches.
It's got a very World War I feel to it, which was kind of interesting in its way, and it's kind of brutal. PG-13 film, people getting exploded and shit like that.
Yeah, the first thing I thought was when I saw this was I'd quite like to see a whole film like this. This is seeing the war as we know of it, where we normally. And this is what I like about these spin-offs, is there's no Jedi. And there's none of that stuff. So we're used to seeing Luke Skywalker with his lightsaber and heroics and all this stuff. And when we don't generally see. I mean, we saw bits of it in Rogue One, but not to that extent. Where we see the war in the trenches, the war in the eyes, through the eyes of the grunts, and even looking at the Empire and where the Empire are fighting.
Yeah.
So I thought this was kind of like a really interesting little bit, and I think it'd be nice to see a whole film.
We didn't stay with it remotely long enough. It was just to see, well, here's where we are, and it's a way to introduce the Tobias Beckett character.
Yeah.
Who's basically posing as I can't remember what rank he was, but let's just say, a general or whatever. But it turns out he's stolen that, and he's gone there to steal some stuff, not realising he's gone into a war zone. And he's there with his team, only one of whom we meet at the moment. We meet Tandy Newton, who's Val, his wife.
Yeah. Got
problems with all of that, but we'll come to it. But I'm always happy to see Woody Harrelson. I like him in most stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of with you. I just think, well, yes, I didn't want this type of film, but at least they show us something a little bit different here.
Yeah.
So
I liked that.
And it's an expectation thing, because you never think Han was actually at one point in the Empire.
No, not at all.
I did, but then I've growing up with Star Wars, that was always what the given kind of origin story for him. like whenever it was mentioned, I don't know if it was mentioned in like any of the original novel or anything like that, or whatever it was mentioned.
Novelizations. It was probably EU, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah, exactly, yeah. And it was always known that was
That's
in the
expanded,
Empire originally.
Stating the obvious, that's expanded universe. I realise we've been mentioning that for weeks, and you probably don't know what we're on about. For those who don't realise, expanded universe, we're talking about all the sort of spin-off books and comics and stuff like that happened before Disney bought it, where they broadened out the story. That's all non-canon now.
Yeah. So it was always kind of thing that he got kicked out of the Empire, and but I mean, from what I remember, it's because he had helped Chewbacca escape from somewhere. So
okay,
but it's a nice lead in,
which is
it's a nice lead into him meeting Chewie, and again a bit of a callback to Jedi.
Yeah, just before we get to that, the key thing, of course, is that he's thrown into a cell very Rancor Beast style. Because he's tried to sort of blackmail Tobias to take him with him out of there, and Tobias has immediately shopped him as a deserter to his superiors, without his superiors knowing that Tobias himself is posing as someone he's not. So he's thrown into this sort of underground cell with a sort of grate up to sort of ground level to feed him to the beast, which has got very Rancor Beast kind of feel to it.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of when it said the Beast. That's what I was expecting.
Beast aftershave, take one.
Neil mainly.
Yeah.
It looks like Rocky 2 was on TV last night.
It was actually Rocky 2, yeah, wasn't it?
I meant to message you, but I turned my phone off at that point.
First thoughts on Rocky 2, folks.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Now, I have to admit, I'm having a minor gripe with a load of this. I love his meeting with Chewbacca.
Oh, God.
Right down to the fact that Chewbacca is matted and filthy, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, it played really well for me.
It's a fun scene. Yeah, it did play out really well.
One of the complaints I heard, because I've seen some reviews of this now, and I've heard this complaint more than once, is how ridiculous it is when Han speaks Chewbacca's language. Didn't have a problem with it.
And the fact that we never see that again throughout the entire series. That was so weird. But it's quite interesting that it's first time we see it.
Well, it's
heard
like
on
that.
screen.
Yeah, it's the only time we're so used to like Han just speaking in English and Chewie just like reacting to him and saying something in Wookiee and he's just understanding. So yeah, I mean, it didn't seem that ludicrous because he would understand it, you know. He would
and he's in desperation.
Yeah.
He's being strangled. Quickly, do something to get this guy.
And again, this is the beginning.
Yeah,
try
to get this guy on my side.
Yeah.
So by the time it's Harrison Ford, then him and Chewie have obviously established that relationship where they don't need to.
No, you
understand
need to
each
speak
other
each other.
perfectly.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the point to make as well, as I said in the last couple of weeks about how we've replaced Peter Mayhew now because of Peter's age, can't be helped.
He is getting older.
Different guy in the outfit now. And I was saying how good Peter Mayhew was that you could even recognise some of his scenes at least. It may well be I've got it wrong, but there's certainly a couple of scenes in The Force Awakens where you go, that's Peter Mayhew. I know the other guy's doing scenes, but that's Peter Mayhew. So when we're reminded that Chewbacca's being played by somebody different, opposite Han for the first time in a whole film, and Han is being played by somebody different, the chemistry is there and it's immediate.
Yeah.
And as they escape and they're trying to run in different directions, that's really great.
I think it takes a lot, doesn't it?
It's very basic humour, but it's terrific.
It takes a lot, but I do think like these two, obviously playing two different aspects of characters, they do create chemistry of their own, amongst the two different actors. And it takes a lot to do that, but I think they pull it off really well. But no, I mean, I've got no problem. Obviously, the first time we hear him sort of speaking Chewbacca's language, I've got no problem with it. I just thought it was a funny point. But obviously, it just takes the first time that they've met and established that relationship by that time that they can go back and forth, and one can understand the other perfectly, which is fine. But I just kind of thought, it's a bit weird. But no, I think these scenes are brilliant, and showing like the back and forth between them is so funny, and it could easily be Peter Mayhew and Harrison Ford. And it's just like old times, really. So it's a lovely thing to see, and I really enjoyed it.
They stay together after this, and you have to be sort of convinced as to why. They have to sell an immediate chemistry.
Yeah.
because they stayed together forever after this. So I really like that.
Well, they really cement that later on, though, don't they?
Like
in a really nice way.
And I did find it funny. The second viewing I had with this, I went with different people, and they all kind of went, "Oh, I don't like that. That looks fucking stupid." The shower scene, I thought that was really funny. Where he stood there showering, and suddenly these hairy feet arrive, and it's like we could have done this separately. So that was really good. So who are we with? They're now with Sam Beckett. Sam Beckett, that's Quantum Leap, isn't it? So, oh boy, right? No, they're now with Tobias Beckett, his wife Val, and what's this other character called?
John Farrow character.
Let me look it up.
Rio Durant.
Rio Durant.
Okay, this is a small sort of CG beast with like four arms, not forearms. And he's kind of the pilot, so that already has it. That already has him marked, because you think, well, Han will have to be the pilot eventually.
Yeah.
And they're being taken to sort of join in a mission of basically robbing a train, aren't they?
Mm.
And I must say, this is possibly my least favourite sequence in the whole film for a number of reasons. I think really, just to skip to the end of the scene for a second, Val dies.
Yeah.
Beckett doesn't seem to really care that much for the rest of the film. And it's a very throwaway way to treat Tandy Newton, but she's not even built up enough to give us a shock value to it.
No.
So this was all a bit weak, and I found the action kind of perfunctory. The only thing that worked in it was that there's a couple of times where Han and Chewie have to work together, and Chewie has to trust Han. You know, Chewie, do that now. And that bit works. So it works in what it's telling us of character, but I didn't find it that exciting.
I think,
just to add, I think I found the sort of campfire scene the night before better.
Yeah, cause I think this is where, I think the action here is pretty just okay, generic, and I think it works better when it's just like you're observing like the world around it and what's happening with the characters. I mean, in the campfire scene, we established that he gets his gun, you know, which it establishes like assembles in from a rifle, doesn't it? He just like takes away the parts and gives them like the movements of the blaster.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think in terms of the Woody Harrelson character, his character's meant to like sort of not really be attached to anyone, like relationship.
Is this his wife though?
Is it his wife, or is it kind of like his girlfriend partner type person? I don't know. We don't get enough time with her to get her perspective. She might feel exactly the same, but he does make a point of like make sure that assume that everyone's at some point is going to betray you, then you won't be disappointed. Particularly
when you're busy trying to steal a MacGuffin.
Yes, especially. So he would have been disappointed in some regards, but I don't think he would have been.
It's just the fact the campfire scene went out of his way to show us the bond between those two. They even have a little kiss at one point. Show us a little bit of humour from Rio. Show us that Han, obviously we've already seen he can do the language, but show him talking to Chewie and Chewie having some stuff to say and the showing of a bit of warmth there. So this campfire scene was not for nothing, you know, and I thought the action sequence kind of threw a lot of it away. But I did like the campfire sequence. And when Charlie talks of a Western, how many Westerns have we seen that in?
Yeah. And again, he's robbing the stage.
It's a stagecoach robbery.
Or a train, yeah. How many times have we seen that?
Yeah, absolutely.
In Westerns. I mean, I enjoyed the sequence. I mean, I thought it was fun, and I thought it was, again, because of Chewie and Han at the centre of it all. But I just thought it was kind of a neat kind of set piece, and also those stormtroopers with the magnetic boots were kind of cool as well.
Yeah.
The kind of killing her there, and then kind of, oh, she's my wife, or she was my wife, was just a bit kind of.
I thought he would carry like a grudge against Han for the rest of the film, and like a scene later, you know, as soon as they get on the Falcon, spoiler alert, a bit later on, he's like, "We got a good thing going here," and I'm thinking, well, it wasn't that good, was it? Your wife fucking died in your mind because of this guy. And also, I thought this was again overthinking the character, because why is he in debt? to Jabba the Hutt in the original trilogy.
Mm.
They got boarded and he had to drop a shipment.
Yeah.
Well, he's dropping a shipment here, effectively.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think it's the instinct to survive, isn't it? It's like you think, if I hang on to it, we're gonna fucking die. Then it's no brainer, isn't it? But
yeah, funnily enough, Han has been if you take the Jabba thing as well, he's not actually much of a risk taker. Han, for all we know of the character, he does kind of
self-preservation.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he doesn't take any silly risks, really. Well, he does, because smuggling is a silly risk in its first place. But he'll pull out of all of that as quickly as he needs to.
Mm.
You know, so I kind of like that. And then they dropped the shipment. They've stolen the shipment, but it's being sort of fought for by this sort of gang.
Hijacked, yeah.
Which we don't know much about at the moment, except they're visually quite interesting. I like their design. Got a Mad Max Fury Road vibe off them.
Yeah, and there's also history, as we find out, between Becca and Enfys Nest.
Enfys Nest, yeah.
Competition.
I have to say that name never stuck. I've got it in front of me here, but yeah, I'd never took that name. But there's a bit of a Mad Max feel to it again, which adds out in the sort of out beyond the front, the frontier.
Yeah. Especially in that later scene when they're all kind of
that coaxium is being stolen. It's massively worth a lot of money, and it's being stolen for a guy called Dryden Voss. That's what the job was being done for, and Beckett is very clear to them, we'll be killed now. So we're going to have to go and talk to them. Han agreed to go with him, and they'll just say we'll steal something else.
Mm.
And so they're taken onto one of my favourite sets in the whole film, this yacht.
Yeah.
And instantly got like the singing duo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like
the song's pretty good as well.
Yeah, the establishing Star Wars environment when you sort of go into like a kind of bar type place and you got like sort of weird type music going on. You think
if the cantina's a rough sort of drinking pit, this is like a posh wine bar. This is the posh wine. This is like the bar at Royal, like the Henley Regatta.
Members only club.
But yeah, Voss is kind of working for Crimson Dawn. We don't know much about Crimson Dawn at this stage, and they've got to just do some fast talking for their life. But to start with, they're just walking around the bar, and he's told not to talk to anyone, not to look at anyone, and he's tapped on the shoulder, and it's Kira, who he's been kind of talking about. One thing we've missed is he's talked all the way since that first part of the film about working his way back to her to go find her, get her off the planet. And of course, she's with Dryden Voss. She's on this ship, looking very beautiful, dressed up, living superficially quite a comfortable life.
What seemingly is, anyway.
That's what I mean, superficially.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
She is effectively a slave.
Mm. She's been basically sold off.
I don't know. She's got that sign on her wrist, doesn't she?
Mm.
Which made me think of Skyfall.
Yeah, I wonder if it was some part of same as Severine's character who belonged to basically.
Well, I mean, that was
a whorehouse.
I was going to say Bond, even though it's still PG-13, is a little bit more adult in its themes.
Yeah, that's.
So I don't think it's meant to be a sex gang in the sex.
No,
that's
why I did think. I think it was similar to Severine's character.
It was her allegiance to him, because I'm pretty sure that was probably the Crimson Dawn logo.
Yeah. Okay. So they agreed to go in.
And show their allegiance to a particular house.
This is the first bit, Mike. So we go in to meet Dryden Voss. We've seen Dryden kill somebody first, and he's quite an unusual design. I think Michael K. Williams was a little bit more alien the first time round.
Apparently, he was going to be half mountain lion, half human. He was described as he would have been like a CGI type.
Right. Okay. This version has just got a face that shows these kind of very red scar-come veins when he's angry and his eyes go red. Otherwise, he looks pretty humanoid. He's a killer. We see him kill somebody before he goes in there. Which, again, lots of Bond... You're right, Becca, there's loads of Bond flashbacks in this. Because I actually thought of Die Another Day, where he was kicking the shit out of that guy in the heavy bag before he goes to meet Bond.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we got to see how brutal he is before he comes to meet our hero. But
Unintentionally,
the first time my heart really sank, apart from Solo, was where they promised to go and steal some unrefined coaxium from Kessel. and I just thought, oh fuck, it's the Kessel-Run.
Well, now
And
we
they
know.
send Kira. He says okay and sends Kira with them.
No, I do really like Paul Bettany in this. I think, as
Yeah,
Becca
he's really
said,
good. Very menacing character.
Yeah.
as a really kind of
But he's
like.
a gentleman as well.
Well, that's
He
that's
always
just
plays-
it. He is pretty much like a Bond villain in the sense that
I'm sold he'd be a pretty decent Bond villain.
He would, yeah, I would agree.
He'd be a pretty decent Bond as well.
he's got really kind of like charming, casual politeness, but you know that
He will slit your throat.
you will basically die like that if he wants. Just, I think it's just in the way that he goes like, well, I guess in that case, and they're all like pretty much getting ready to get shot. It's just he's just got a really nice sort of charismatic charm to him.
Yeah, so they send Kira off with them, and they go to find Lando.
Oh yes, this is where he nearly wins the Millennium Falcon.
Nearly.
Nearly.
Nearly. Let's say slightly nearly.
I really like Donald Glover in this. I think he's absolutely terrific.
He's perfect. Yeah. He's perfect for the role.
Fast talking, kind of charming, totally gets the spirit of the character.
And rocks a cape.
And very like Solo in the original trilogy, hanging out somewhere that's not the most salubrious, but like doing it with a smile on his face. I mean, the first thing we see is like Robot Wars, isn't it?
It is a bit Robot Wars, yeah.
And we're introduced,
I did think of Robot Wars.
and we're introduced to the L3 character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who has the most peculiar dialect. Now we know why.
I found this character funny because it's an in-joke. It is. They're complaining, all the complaints about diversity in that, and she's talking about equal rights, but she's talking about equal rights for droids, which is funny because they're all wearing restraining bolts. But there is a point there because you go, actually, we've seen right the way back to the first film, droids feel pain.
Yeah.
And yet they're slaves. But it's not hammered as like a big point for us to think about and ruminate on. It's a joke. It's played for laughs.
It gives you like how the other characters react to it. Gives you like the way not like let's not take it like too seriously because Lando, like whenever she does mention that stuff, Lando all like basically rolls his eyes. Yeah,
it's just like whatever. She's always banging on about this shit.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a surprisingly heartfelt relationship, but we'll come on to that. First thing we see is a game of cards.
Mm-hmm.
He, too, likes to live dangerously.
My name is Oprah, and this is my wife. My name is
She's
my wife
coming up with
Oprah.
directing.
It literally, who was directing? This is my wife Oprah.
Yeah. I don't know what this game they're playing is, but it doesn't really matter, does it?
Sabat.
Poker. Doesn't really matter, does it?
Snap, yeah.
Snap. No, I like
Buckaroo.
Buckaroo Banzai. No, I like the fact that we see the what's it? Is it the version of chess with all the creatures?
On the
the hollow chest.
See that in a bit.
Yeah, hollow chess. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. It's nice that we see that again.
Yeah, that's before they get. That's once they get on the Falcon in a bit.
Yeah, I'm skipping ahead, but I do like that scene.
Yeah. Yeah, the scene here is quite good. Lando cheats. We know he cheats instantly. Do we see it? We do.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we see like cars like sort of slip into his hands.
This is misdirection. We're supposed to think he wins the Falcon here, but he doesn't. He loses, but they get Lando to join for a share of the profits, which I think is originally 25%. They get talked down over time to 20 because basically the ship's been clamped. I found that quite funny. When they get to the Falcon, after all that smooth talking, he's been clamped.
But it basically boils down to like Lando is basically just talks his way in and out of things all the time. Like he is basically just like a con man. This way he just sort of just grandize himself in this big things, like oversells himself to get like the best possible deal.
I just think get Lord and Miller back and just give them the Lando film. I don't think they're quite right for a Han Solo film. They might be for like a constant series of capers with Lando, with no meaning, weight, or anything to them at all. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just completely separate and like...
Yeah, absolutely. Just a completely meaningless spin-off film, not trying to fill in any lore. Because there isn't a lot of lore with Lando anyway, unless you want to fill in how he ended up running sort of Cloud City. So, they get onto the Millennium Falcon. Millennium Falcon looks a little different.
It looks clean and tidy.
It looks very clean.
It looks very shiny. It looks like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek film. There.
It does.
Yeah,
Shiny ship.
yeah, it does. And he's got his own sort of cape cupboard.
Yeah, it's got a very own cape room.
That just made me think of Doctor Who when you find out there's like a whole area with all these thousands of clothes.
TARDIS wardrobe.
Interesting here, where it's probably the closest Star Wars has ever been to kind of implicating about sex.
What, him and the droid?
No, the scene in the closet with him and Kira.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I thought they weren't far away from getting it on, were they?
Yeah.
Implying she's done lots of bad things, which kind of has a hint of sex, like you wouldn't want me if you know what I'd done.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
means
means
film noir
morality
kinda,
or whether,
femme fatale kind of thing there.
Dead men don't wear plaid.
That's a Steve Martin film, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Everyone said that's the first thing I think of when I think of film noir. I don't think of a proper film noir.
I think of Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
So they head off towards Kessel, don't they?
Yeah. To steal this.
Yeah. The film wastes no time, does it? It just goes.
It really gets on with it.
It does get on with it. And then what do we have? L3 is having a lot of banter with Kira about how much how Lando's in love with her.
Yeah.
How would that even work? It works. And I like that. And I think, again, the fan base went mental over this pansexual thing, and they only meant this, I think.
It's not even confirmed, though, because clearly, Lando's like just very much like, fuck, so she keeps saying these things all the time.
I know. I mean, he's clearly fucking heartfelt when she gets hurt.
Yeah.
But, so, I think that's all that was meant by it. But again, the fan base are already whipped up to be pissed off about everything. So, so they steal the coaxium. This sequence of the film's pretty decent, and it's the one bit where I can really see Harrison Ford, because he replicates the stance from all the sort of promotional stuff.
He's shooting his gun.
Yeah. That's replicating Harrison Ford's stance, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't remember much else. They break out a couple of Wookiees. L3 gets all the restraining bolts off a load of them. What else?
We get shot by Screaming Revolution by not really focusing on what she's doing.
There's another Wookiee there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't look like a Wookiee. It kind of looks very different. I suppose there would be. That reminded me of, if you go back and watch the... because it looks like a Wookiee with a budget of £2.50, right? To make it. Because you got Chewbacca, who always looks pretty, good. And then you've got this Wookiee that looks shit. And it reminds me, if you go out and find the 1970s Incredible Hulk TV series, there was an episode called The First, right? Because he would go from town to town, wouldn't he, trying to cure himself and getting dragged into things. And it turned out there was a guy in this town who had been a Hulk years before. And eventually he turns into a Hulk. And they have a fight. But I'm going to show you what he looked like. I'm gonna just send you the link now, right? Because this is what happens when you try and make, you don't have enough money to do, Lou Ferrigno a second time. So this, guys, and for those not listening who can't see this, obviously, just go look it up. That's what it looks like when you do it with no money, and that made me think of that, seeing the other Wookiee. They haven't got the money to do it, which makes me think that was done in reshots.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite cheap.
An old man just painted green. So
they have the money for the face paints and nothing else.
It's pretty much, yeah. But L3 gets basically blown to bits here. And Lando looks genuinely distraught.
Well, she gets blown up, and then what remains of her is put into the computer, into the Falcons.
Yes. Yeah.
So
navigation.
it wasn't that Han was an amazing pilot. It's that the Falcon had a droid, basically, who was established earlier in the film as an extraordinarily sophisticated navigational tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she said that I would have wiped her completely, personality, but she's the best navigation.
Yep. They fly away. They fly away from. They fly away, and
time's ticking because the power's unstable.
They immediately run into an Imperial blockade. That's the other thing. The unrefined coaxium has like a very short half-life and basically will kind of become unstable and blow up. So they've got no time to do the Kessel-Run. And it can only be done in like 20 parsecs as far as we know.
So what is the Kessel-Run then? Because I've seen it, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what.
I don't fucking know. It's a distance between two places, from one place to another. How quickly can you do it? They go a more dangerous route with the help of the sort of L3 software. And I really couldn't give a shit about any of this. That's the problem, because this is one of the bits of the film that's only there for lore.
You have a bit that reminded me of the 2009 Star Trek film.
When they were being dragged into a gravity well?
Yeah.
That's like the very end. They're being dragged into a black hole at the very end of the 2009.
Yeah, I liked the big, huge monster though. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. Visually, it was great, and it was the one bit of the film where I felt any excitement at all.
And the way it got stripped apart as well.
Yeah, so that was cool. And they get away and just head to a planet to process this stuff. Yeah. The Kessel-Run is from Kessel to this Savarine place to process it. It's not that, I don't think it's that well thought out, to be honest with you. But they've got to get from one place to another in a shorter distance and faster time than this stuff's going to survive without blowing them up. So they have to find a faster route.
And they basically go with the plan of, right, we're going to go at light speed, but at sideways to fit into the enclosing gap.
Yeah, that's right, because it's all closing in on them.
Yeah, so that's kind of like almost like, this is the best shot we got, so we're going to take it.
And as they turn on their side, Tiffany Case is all like, eee!
We also establish of the fact that Chewie actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah, because Kira sat beside him as the co-pilot to start with. He asked her to do something. She's not quite sure what she's doing. Chewie knows instantly.
Yeah.
Because he's
and then
so many years old.
Then they sit together and have a wank because because they're in their famous spots that we know them. They give each other some knowing looks. They do it at the end of the film. It's the film jerking itself off, but there you go. And they had to go and basically get this stuff refined.
Basically the big secret is that, but essentially they use a little bit of the stuff to kind of get out, and then they light speed out of there, and then they go straight to the drop off.
Memphis Nest shows up.
Yeah, and the ship is trashed because that's quite funny. You've got like Lando looking at it. I never want to see you again, to Han. Which again is all very knowing, but it is funny because the thing is just trashed.
Yeah.
Memphis turns up, and the bit I love is again very like a Western. He stands forward, ready to do the shootout. Readies his gun just like he does in the cantina in A New Hope, and says, I've only got to give the signal and all my men are going to come out of that ship.
And it just flies off.
It flies off, and then he just sort of steps back and says, sorry.
Yeah, go with your plan.
That's funny. That is funny. And she reveals herself, and it turns out she's kind of a very pale, ginger, freckly young lady. And they're just rebels trying to prevent this group gaining more power. Crimson Dawn are basically kind of part of the Empire, aren't they?
Yeah.
Did they explain in what sense, or because I just think they were just like a huge like gangster type people, like another like bad element in the galaxy.
I don't know.
Well, I'm guessing. I don't know exactly where it links in, but with Crimson Dawn and all that, and the Empire as well, and obviously who we find out is in charge of Crimson Dawn.
If only there's like a Sith in charge or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute because that was fucking dumb. But anyway, what do we get? We get any real sort of action here? We don't really, do we?
No, I mean, in terms of your main set pieces, we're done really. I mean, we only have like a bit of scuffle later on, but a lot of it is all just set up really now. You have the revelation of what they are, then they have to then they form a plan. I mean, Beckett kind of says, I don't want to be part of this, and walks off.
Yeah.
And he thought, right, okay, we form a plan to kind of like not give it to Drayden Voss.
Yeah.
And then they go and see him.
Yeah, and he actually does go in with like the real stuff, but
yeah, they kind of like blag it. Yeah, they sort of.
It's quite a neat little moment because you think it's going to be her
that dobbed him in.
Yeah,
and it isn't. It's Beckett, who we thought had walked off.
Yeah.
So we get a bit of action here. We get a bit of a fight.
The only thing I will say about the fact that it was Beckett. Now I don't know this. I could be wrong because rewatch value in that I might have missed a few crucial things. I don't think the film kind of establishes it. Like, how did Han reckon he would do that? I mean, maybe it might be part of the fact that don't trust anyone.
I mean, I know you said don't trust anyone, but that's a bit thin, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, unless I'm missing something else, I don't know, but.
I don't know, because he does look at Kira to start with, but it's almost like maybe it is not that he thought he would do it, but that he's been told not to trust anyone, so he's set up ready not to.
Yeah.
But then it's all people are predictable. That was his other saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think it's really well done, but we do get a little bit of action here. So we've got a double cross, and then we basically end up with he disappears with Chewbacca as a hostage, I think. Kira kills Voss. We think she's going to kill Han, but she kills Voss. And then she contacts like the head of Crimson Tide, Crimson Dawn. She contacts Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
What I heard before we say who this is, Ron Howard was offered a list of who it could be. So there were multiple options. In our universe, it would fit if it's one of these people. So Darth Maul wasn't the only one, but it turned out to be Darth Maul. Now, most cinema goers would think he was dead. I know that that's not the case in the wider universe, but they would have thought he was dead. So they wouldn't immediately necessarily know that it wasn't just another one of his people. But the thing that really just got to me in this, it made me laugh, is he switches on this double dot-sided lightsaber for a split second, just to confirm, I am
me. Remember me? Remember this?
Why would you do that?
And you robotic legs as well.
Yeah, he's on robotic legs, and you can hear that. I only heard it the second time, but you can sort of hear the servos in it.
You can hear it
go. But yeah, he just switches them on, switches it off again, and that's it. Just fucking madness. But yeah, so Darth Maul is the head of Crimson Dawn.
I wasn't expecting it for some reason.
And Kira is now a sort of chief lieutenant, if you like.
Where do her allegiances lie? Very mysterious.
She blames everything on Beckett, doesn't say anything about Han. Han catches up to Beckett, and basically, as Beckett's like talking to him, Han shoots first.
Yeah.
He really does shoot first.
Fuck you, George Lucas, the film.
Gunshot.
Should have come up as a little subtitle on the screen, and fuck you.
Yeah, and screw you, George.
He should have broke the third wall and turned to the camera and went, fuck you, George.
I did it.
See, I told you it was me first.
Yeah, so look at the others and go, I told you.
This didn't happen to the other guy. Wink.
Yeah, this never happened to the other fella.
Yeah, he's offered the chance to go and join sort of Memphis Nest. He says no. He's been told about a job on Tatooine with one of the Huts, or a gangster there. It's obvious to us it's Jabba the Hutt, but I don't think the dialogue
we didn't
would
see
be...
Jabba.
No, it's not. No, it's
I thought it
not.
would have been pretty cool, but never mind.
We saw him too early.
I know, but never mind.
He should never be seen till Jedi.
No.
Full stop. So he's given a little bit of coaxium, which is enough for them to go and buy a ship, but he actually uses it to stake himself in a rematch with Lando. Where basically we can go on
a tropical planet somewhere.
Yeah, basically on the set of Moonraker.
All these Bond references that you didn't know were in this film.
Yeah, all started by you going, "Did you catch the Bond reference?" Now I'm seeing them everywhere.
No, I didn't mean that. Literally,
and the slide whistle during the Kessel-Run.
Yeah, when I typed it, I didn't mean
the
that.
rebellion? On whose side?
Oh, because I'm just thinking like Stormtrooper T. Pepper.
Stormtrooper JW, oh my god.
I like this guy because the second set he plays cards with him at is like a bit sleazy. And it's cool, it's really good. It's a different environment. He's wearing a different cape. You know, it's just like he goes around like pulling this shit everywhere, cheating. Han spots the cards and steals them out of his wrist. That's why I was saying I don't know if we knew he was cheating in the first one.
Yeah.
He spot it here, and basically he wins the Falcon, and then him and Chewie get on board it, look at each other, mutually masturbate. Credits.
So if Lando didn't hate him before, he fucking despises him now. I don't want to see you again. Turns up, takes his fucking shit.
I honestly thought of that episode of Star Trek where they were in then modern day Earth with like Terry Garr and that.
Right.
And at the end of the film, like he says, "What wonderful adventures you've got ahead of yourself," because it's a backdoor pilot. And I could just imagine Solo saying that to Chewbacca at the end. You know, what wonderful adventures we've got ahead. Light speed, you know. Bit of a cheesy ending, but there you go. That's it. The first Star Wars flop.
Oh.
I think this will get reevaluated a little bit. I think, but when everything's cooled down a little bit, I think people kind of actually, you know what? I think it's a bit of a grower. Myself personally, I don't think it's.
I agree. Far better on second viewing. I'll go first. I've got a lot to say. Far better on second viewing. It wasn't bad on first viewing. It was fine. It's just a little bit perfunctory, a little bit heavy, too heavy on references. We don't need to be treated like idiots. And frankly, they released it too soon after the last one. The Last Jedi was still in cinemas in late January. So this film was kind of hung out to dry, really. Had there been a little bit of time, bring it out at Christmas, I think it would have done better. Still isn't the Star Wars film I want, but with everything that happened, they did pretty well from it. And I think it would be a shame if we don't find a way to see Alden again as Han Solo, even if it's not him as the lead, even if he's a side part of a later film or another film, or he's just part of this universe now, and use him like Marvel do some of maybe their second tier characters that you see them pop in and out of films. I would like to see these two again. Obviously we'll see Chewbacca time and time again with the same guy playing him, but pretty decent. But up your game, Lucasfilm. You've done pretty well, actually. I don't have a problem with what you've done since Disney have owned you. But this isn't what you should be doing with Star Wars. This is lazy and pandering, but allowing for that. You've actually done a pretty good job with it.
Did just a quick question? Has Han got a history with Obi-Wan before New Hope, or was that the first time?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. No, so I was just wondering whether like they might met before or something, or someone I know, because they might well wait to have him like cameo in the Obi-Wan film. Just a passing question, I don't know, but
might happen with Darth Maul.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I think that's what led me to it. I mean, but yeah. So, I'm kind of agree with Dave pretty much on this. I really enjoyed it better on second watch. I wouldn't object to have seen a sequel, or maybe have a Lando-based sequel and have them be the secondary characters. I don't know, but yeah, this isn't as bad. Again, I think you have to be wary about building up on lore and destroying. Just having to explain everything. We don't need to see the Kessel-Run. We don't need to see all these things. Just have their own original stories that are not based around anything. But overall, it's not bad. I just wish the action was a bit better. But there are worse things.
I would pretty much agree with that, really. I think to its detriment, obviously, it's kind of suffering the same fate as the previous film. Like a lot of attention has been drawn to the fact that it's been trolled quite badly. I do think at this stage we are suffering a little bit of Star Wars fatigue. So it would have best maybe said they waited till Christmas rather than, or at least the kind of like December slate rather than summer.
This does prove. Sorry to interrupt, but this does prove they're not Marvel. They're not going to get away with doing 2 or 3 films a year.
No.
Yeah.
Even though it's effectively under the same banner, but yeah, it's not quite the same. But no, it's very enjoyable. I say they had some admin box ticking to do, and it's good to kind of see the origins of this character. We're still on at the right pace. There are hidden Bond references that you never knew about.
We've made up a load more tonight.
They're obviously not Bond references. Just obviously
they are now,
but they're just very similar. And obviously, Rocky.
Ron Howard's just confirmed he was thinking of Bond of the whole time.
I love for Ron Howard to direct a Bond film. So, obviously Rocky references as well that we spotted, Star Trek references that we spotted.
Unleash the Beast this Christmas.
Godfather Part 2 references we spotted.
Godfather references. Andalini. But yeah, no, I'm very enjoyable once it got past the initial box ticking. Really enjoyable, serviceable film. Would see again. We'll probably pick it up when it comes out on home release. Charlie, thoughts?
Yes. No, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it definitely suffered from the fact that they released it at the wrong time. Not only for the fact that it's too close to the Last Jedi's release.
It was a shit release date as well, wasn't it?
But it was, well, not really, because it was released the same day as Star Wars was released. It was and those are the days it used to be on before Disney.
It's not as good as a release date as it used to be. Don't know.
Yeah.
The world's changed.
May 4th.
But the fact is that they didn't start marketing it till February. And when you've got a film where someone is playing such an iconic character that has already been known by a different actor that has played it 4 times, then you need to try and win the crowd over, as it were, and get actual proper marketing campaign in place, which they didn't have time for with a May release date, whereas with Christmas they could have. But it's all down to fucking Mary Poppins, isn't it? Because Mary Poppins is coming out this Christmas, and that's Disney's big release. So I blame Mary Poppins, and I can't stand that film. But in any case, yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable. I'd like to see these sort of films, but not original stories. Get these characters like the Boba Fett one. I'd love to see Boba Fett in something like The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, that kind of thing. Not original stories, just stories that are fun, that are kind of genre bending, and that allows them to do something interesting with the characters and stuff that we haven't seen in Star Wars before, and that the tone of the main saga does not normally allow for. But yeah, it's mostly the release date, and it's got nothing to do with the fact, I don't think, that all these idiot fans that are trying to boycott Solo and trying to get Kathy Kennedy fired because of The Last Jedi, because they can't accept there's a fucking women are actually being given decent parts in the story. Grow up, get your hands off your dicks, move out of the basement, stop fucking around. Yeah,
I agree with Charlie, except feel free to leave your hands on your dicks. That's fun.
That's fun, folks.
These fucking assholes that seem to claim that they speak for the fans when they have no idea, and that it's just a tiny minority that, as usual, because they shout loud on the internet, people seem to think that
they speak for us all. Yeah, no, I get your point. I get your point. I mean, we're saying the same things, but in different ways, Charlie. Because you've just said, "Give us a Boba Fett film." I don't want one, but actually, we've got different ways of expressing the same approach. You're saying, take us away from the saga, take us away from endless references, and make something that takes advantage of the fact that this sits outside.
Yeah.
And I'm saying the same thing. We just might have a different idea as to what that would be.
Because I'm really interested in the Boba Fett film, just mainly because he's a villain. So I'm interested how they pull that off, and again, the Western anti-hero kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is where he's kind of he kind of seen as a villain, but he's a bounty hunter, so he goes where the money.
He's amoral. He's completely amoral.
Exactly. So in that kind of space Western arena, then I think something like that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I prefer not to see a Boba Fett film personally, but then again, yeah, I could be proved wrong though. So
they're making one, so you have no choice.
I'm not going to go in all depressed.
Have we not seen it already with the earlier Star Wars movies?
No, we saw a little kid who couldn't fucking act.
So we've kind of got that knowledge already. So I figure
that's not a Boba Fett film. That's a couple of scenes with a little.
Again, this is the kind of thing we don't want to see in these films. But I mean, James Mangold is doing the Boba Fett film. I mean, we saw what kind of job he did with Logan.
Well, I was going to say which
is basically a Western.
I was going to say that's a totally tipping in the nod as to what it might be.
Yeah.
And James Mangold has done some really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm saying is, when they go into production on a Boba Fett film, I won't spend the next year going, "Oh fuck, a Boba Fett film." I really won't, because
Yeah.
I think you have the potential to do something really interesting with it. I think what I'm saying is these projects are only every other year, and so we're only going to see a certain number of them, even if they do add up over time. And there are things I would prioritize over giving us the early years of characters we met in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So I don't want a Boba Fett film. Having said that, Becca said halfway through the review, give us the Lando film. And I suddenly thought, what could that be? Well, that could actually be a Lord and Miller type film, and I'd be up for that.
A buddy movie.
So it's not an absolute rule, but it's just a general perspective of, they've gone from the Force Awakens end of things, where you're playing it very safe, to the Last Jedi end of things, where you're very definitely not. This film that we've covered tonight falls much more in the Force Awakens end of things.
Yeah.
And I want to see more, not like The Last Jedi, but more of the approach of The Last Jedi, where you're taking some chances.
Yeah, well, considering this new trilogy Rian Johnson's been given, where he's going outside the saga.
Yes.
It sounds really interesting.
Yes.
I'm just really interested to see what he does with that.
But I mean, we Chris and I talked about it on a show the other night, that some of the ideas that we pulled right out the air, they weren't anything we'd sat and considered, but immediately I could think of 2 or 3 things where I'm like, why don't they do something like that? Why don't they do something like that? But hey, they're
you're doing like a political film, like like All the President's Men, but in the Senate and things like that.
Yeah, and I would say, well, the Jedi on the Run, after Order 66, and what was the other one I talked about? There were 2 or 3 where I just said, but you would have to accept in some cases that you are chasing Solo's level of box office, not Rogue One's. Because if you do political intrigue at the Senate, it's not going to do $1 billion.
No.
Right? So cut your cloth accordingly, but play with genre, be brave. But, but then I would be changing the release schedule altogether. I'd be doing, I think I'd be looking to do like a saga film, and then maybe a couple of spin-offs, and then maybe like a fallow year, spreading out the saga a bit more and resting it every 3rd or 4th year. I just would, and I think already they're in danger. They're just in a little bit of danger that this has stretched things now. Putting 2 out in 5 months has not been a good move.
No.
And it's funny, we talked about that as well, that there's a different appetite for different things, Star Wars is probably the most successful saga there's ever been, franchise there's ever been. But it can't bear the weight of 2 or 3 a year. Marvel at the moment still can, even 20 films in, which is more, we must remind ourselves, than Star Wars.
Especially when you're given such a small window to market it.
Yeah, like you said, they kind of started it was released kind of like April sort of time, and they started marketing in February. I was like, what, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all, as usual, some of us are damning with faint praise, but we're all pretty positive about this.
Yeah.
This film came out all right, and it's solidly enjoyable, but there are dangers in prequel filmmaking, because it's like, well, we know we'd be all right.
If you know who survives.
When he's hanging off something, for his life, like, well, he's going to climb back in, otherwise the later films won't happen.
Yeah, he dies in this film, and then like you rewatch Last Hope, and he just like sort of disintegrates.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it really, some of it is in execution, because when they were stuck in the gravity well, I suspended disbelief. For the moment, I felt the peril. Whereas a moment's thought would have told me the craft survives, Lando survives, Han definitely survives. Do you know what I mean? But I did get caught up in it. But by and large, the action wasn't good enough to do that. But the film is solid, and the film rests on very good chemistry between the 2 leads. And by the 2 leads, I mean Han and Chewie.
Indeed.
But I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I'm fucking clueless, let's be honest.
Charlie, we'll put you on the spot.
Why?
You've peppered it with fun facts across the film.
Have I stolen all your fun facts?
No, you haven't. That's fine.
Right. Well, apparently, the voice of Lady Proxima was Linda Hunt.
Linda Hunt, who is made history for winning an Oscar for playing a different gender.
Yeah.
She won Best Supporting Actress in about 82 for The Year of Living Dangerously, which is a Mel Gibson film, playing a male photographer, as I recall. I have seen that film.
Yeah, she played like an Asian guy, basically.
Yeah, flawlessly.
And she was in Kindergarten Cop as well.
Yes, but I'd forgotten that.
Anti Agent, if anyone remembers that.
Yeah, I remember that. That was great.
I saw that cinema
at the time. Warwick Davis apparently reprises his role from The Phantom Menace as Weasel.
Yes.
In this, is that what it is? Yeah, because I never checked out who he was playing.
Also, it's the same character then. I didn't realise.
Yeah, because Becca said last week he was playing like his 5th character or something like that, and I thought, oh, there'll be a 6th next week, but obviously not.
No, that's his character. I think this marks he's been involved with 10 Star Wars films now.
And
various iterations of characters that he's played.
Yeah.
Does that include the Caravan of Courage and all that stuff?
No.
Well, including.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Ewok films.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was in those two, wasn't he?
Yeah. So counting those, I think it's probably about 9 or 10 Star Wars movies that he's been in. So.
Yeah,
kudos.
I mean, it would count as 6, I suppose. But if of the original or 7, one of the two, yeah. All right, cool. What else? What else can we learn?
Apparently, Ron Howard turned down directing The Phantom Menace.
Oh, Ron! What did you do that for?
He looked at the script and thought, nah.
Get down, bro. No, it's all right. No, all right then. Stick or twist. No, that's fine.
Stick or twist. Oh my god.
No, let's stick with George Lucas. I too like to live dangerously.
Apparently, he said
Richard Cunningham?
he'd asked Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg.
A Robert Zemeckis Star Wars film would interest me.
And
it'd be a lot lighter in tone, for sure.
What, for
Maybe.
each of the film? For each film, so like Ron Howard, first one.
He'd asked them all to direct.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing Zemeckis and Spielberg turned him down, so he went to Ron Howard.
Right.
And they all said George Lucas should direct it.
Yeah, they hadn't seen his work for a while.
And here we are.
All right. Okay. But that was that, as facts go, was just the whore's duvet. Becca.
Is the what?
Sorry, hors d'oeuvres.
I've not heard of that before.
It's a Bottom reference. Martin Wiley, if he's listening, got it.
Yeah, he'll probably get it, definitely.
Yeah.
Bottom joke. From last time.
That's just the whore's duvet.
That one passed me by, clearly. A couple of fun facts. Another Bond reference would be that apparently some critics have said that the influence of Kira is in fact taken from Vesper Lind, obviously from Casino Royale.
I thought of Vesper during that film.
Yeah.
I just suddenly thought she'd have been the wrong age because she would have been less than 20 when that film came out. But I thought, could I see her as a Bond girl? And then I thought, she looks a bit Vesper-like.
If they were making Casino Royale now, then I think they would do well to cast her in a Bond film now, generally.
No, I generally agree, yeah.
She could be the next Bond woman.
Yeah.
I came across a little fun fact on the interwebs, I don't know if it's right or not. But obviously on Dryden's yacht, there are many nice things that he's collected. And it says, of all the treasures in them, there are some things that might be recognised from other film franchise, Indiana Jones. There are Sankara stones from Temple of Doom, Fertility Idol from Raiders, and also the Holy Grail itself, hidden away on his yacht, apparently, which I didn't spot, but that would have been pretty cool.
India's expenses must have been fucking massive going all the way there to get them.
He submits his report to the Empire. Oh, by the way, I need this money.
Yeah.
Other fun facts. Fun fact number 2, Tobias Beckett and Dryden Voss obviously share names with British literary figures, namely the Irish poet Samuel Beckett and 17th century poet Dryden. Very exciting. For a couple of technical facts now, for the stunt work, 2 of Hans' speeders were built on custom-built chassis with a V8 engine, so you can go up to over 100 miles an hour. Another fun fact, obviously this is the first film where we see the character of Chewie as like to lead the film. So up to 8 suits and 10 heads were produced for the character. And the last fun fact I have on this film is that the 25 pairs of iconic gold dice are about the Millennium Falcon, and of the 25 of them, 3 of them were made by a luxury retail jeweler at Tiffany. So very exciting indeed.
Yeah, iconic.
Iconic indeed. Iconic item and an iconic ship made by an iconic luxury fashion house.
Super duper. That's the end of Charlie's little run with us.
Yes.
For a little while.
Oh, when can we have you back?
Well, he's going to come and do a Marvel music episode. We need to sketch Marvel out. We haven't done that yet. We'll sort that in the next week. We'll sit down and actually work out what's in that Marvel series apart from the films. At the moment, there's definitely the films. There's definitely a rankings episode because there's enough of them to do a rankings episode. There's definitely a music episode. We haven't worked out commentaries, and we haven't worked out when, for example, the music episode's going to come. Right at the end, I would think, but we'll see. So we'll figure that out. It probably won't be the immediate series after it because there's about 8 films in it, and we will probably throw in a little 2 or 3 episode thing in between. But then we're doing Planet of the Apes, and Charlie will join us for that, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Charlie's a big fan of that series, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So Charlie will be the fan in sort of now playing terms of the 4 of us on that series. We'll cover all of them. We'll cover the original 5 films, the Tim Burton films, and the 3 new films. So that'll be a 9-film series. Yeah, so we'll probably see. Depends how long Marvel is. We may get you in just before Christmas. Otherwise, it will be just after.
Yeah.
Though you will be joining us in early December for our commentary on Superman the movie from the 1978 film. Cannot wait to revisit that.
Absolutely.
And timely as well. We don't want to play down the loss of Margot Kidder. She was a large part of why that first film worked.
Yeah, for a generation, she is Lois Lane.
She still is. She's still my Lois
She
Lane.
is. She's
absolutely,
like by the old go. You know.
Not Terry Hatcher.
Not Terry Hatcher, no.
No, she is Lois Lane.
Yeah.
For a generation and for the whole Superman franchise, you know, many have come. That sounds really rude. Obviously, others have made this move from after them.
Allow me to rephrase, many have jizzed on.
Throwing a plate in celebration.
Chris is actually using a spittoon for it. You can hear it then.
and as you could hear, that was from some distance, so.
Is everything alright?
It is now.
It's a skill. It's a skill.
Apparently, Superman 3 was released on this date in 1983.
Yeah, this date, what today? So 17th of June we're recording this, folks. It'll be out in time. So yeah, a week before you're hearing this is the date in 1983 where we enjoyed a man getting the scoop of the century as he goes back for his 17 year after leaving school anniversary. What a film. Okay, social media, folks.
I think you can find me at Simulatronics on the Twitter, which I'd barely post anything anyway. Sorry, guys. But there we are. And you can also find all the old episodes as they're slowly disappearing one by one off iTunes at simulatronics.co.uk.
Why is that? Because we had somebody tweet us to say, oh no, it was Sean.
Somebody told us that all of the JBR episodes, for example, are still there, and they've done a similar number to us. In fact, they've done about 20 more than us at this stage.
Other podcasts still have
Becca,
all their
I think what it is.
episodes going back there, so I don't know why. Yeah. Is it Sean Black, maybe?
Oh, I'm just looking it up. It's because their show's quite good.
Well, is it sort of quality, or is it just literally because they pay more, or
I don't know.
Is it like
There's got to be a reason for it. There's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah, I want to know why.
Because it's consistent. It is like we keep the last 80 episodes we've recorded. And if you count specials, we've done and Cinematronics episodes, actually, there's 2 or 3 on the feed of that as well. We've got about 123 in total or something. So we've lost the first 40 odd. So I don't know. We'll look into that.
I don't know why. If you're listeners, if you're podcast hosts as well, and you know what we can do to stave it off, let us know.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we shall just be slowly dying.
Otherwise, everything we're not. There's still the same number of episodes on there, but obviously, as we add one, we lose one.
But it's still on the feed, though, isn't it? Still, like, if you actually go on the feed itself rather than through iTunes,
yeah,
you still find
go on the site. It's all still there. It's all still there. You can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
Where can they find you, Charlie?
You can find me at Movie Drone on Twitter.
Are you still doing your podcast based on movie scores?
Not at the moment. I'm trying to do something with it at the moment. But I am doing a newsletter. So, yeah, if you go to my Twitter, and I'll put out the link, and you can go and subscribe to it, and that'll give you all the film music news for the week.
Ooh.
Super.
That sounds really interesting. I look forward to subscribing to that newsletter.
Marvel-related news, I think we ought to just cover, Charlie. There's been some Marvel-related news in the last few days, score-wise. Do you just want to quickly cover that?
Oh, yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Thingy. Yeah. This
Thingy.
Captain Marvel, the upcoming Marvel film with Brie Larson, will be scored by a lovely composer called Pina Toprak, who is a female composer, which is brilliant.
Would I know anything she's done?
No. Have you seen Krypton?
The TV series?
Yeah.
I haven't, but she's been scoring that.
She's been doing that, yeah.
Okay, super.
She did some music. She did some additional music for Justice League, I believe.
Okay.
Because DC didn't bother to get a female composer for Wonder Woman. But also on that.
To be fair, they did get quite a few women involved in that film, so I'm not going to be too harsh on them.
Didn't help it much.
Wonder Woman starring Tom Hardy.
Lovely tits, Tom.
But there's been a lot of people, news places going, doing their headlines as her being the first female composer to score a superhero movie and a comic movie, which is bollocks.
Not that true.
What level are you starting at?
The actual, the first one was a woman called, sadly departed woman called Shirley Walker.
Shirley Walker, Mask of the Phantasm.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm in 1993.
But I suppose if you take, A-list live action superhero films, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just she's not the first.
Well, Marvel have a bit of a history of sort of breaking new talent or getting people early, so if this gives her some exposure and a star. She scored a lot. She just hasn't scored anything big.
No. It's good to see them nurturing hidden talent, as it were.
Fortnite is quite a big game at the moment. She scored that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my kid plays it. All
right, Becca.
If you want to follow us on social media, you can at Expect Us to Talk on Facebook. If you type in "Do you expect us to talk?" If you type in the same on YouTube, "Do you expect us to talk?" Drop us an email. Expect us to talk at gmail.com. And obviously, even though we are fast disappearing off iTunes, you can catch all the exciting feeds from way back when on Chris's website, cinematronics.co.uk.
Excellent.
And I think I managed to delete our profile off Letterboxd the other day.
Well,
that was
fine.
going nowhere.
No one went there anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That was it.
Yeah, if only we had a format where we could talk about what we thought about films.
Every platform ever.
Yeah. All right, so we are moving on to another series, but as is always the case when we're between series, it's Bond commentary time. Sign us off, Chris.
Do you expect us to talk? We'll return with the Man with the Golden Gun commentary.